For more analysis, we can bring in our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, we seem to be getting a kind of mixed messaging from Trump. On the one hand, the war's nearly over. On the other, it could start back up again. How do you read that?
Well, when you listen to Donald Trump and you come away from that press conference, you can either think, okay, things are going in the right direction. This could all be over by the end of the week. But you could also think, well, we don't really know where this is all going. And that is the big problem. And he's also fallen out, as we can see from this sentence here from a few days ago with the United Kingdom over their role in this war as well. So we don't know exactly what is happening here and what is motivating these comments. Is it the fear about oil prices going up, which could then affect the United States as well later on, that Donald Trump is making these rather positive announcements about, well, the war's going to be over soon and that will calm down the markets, which is what has happened overnight. Remember yesterday that oil price per barrel went up to about $120 or just under. It's come down again quite significantly since Donald Trump held that press conference. But we still don't know what the ultimate victory actually means. What does Donald Trump want to achieve? Remember, at the start of this war, he was saying the people of Iran will be able to rise up and take back control of their country. This will be a unique opportunity for them to do that. We will tell them when they will be able to. Well, that all seems to have disappeared into the woodwork, and we don't hear that anymore from the American president. What we're hearing is basically he would be happy to call an end to the war when he feels that the nuclear program of Iran has been totally destroyed, but no more mention about regime change or even trying to get rid of the newly elected head of the country, Mojtaba Khamenei, or exactly what Donald Trump intends to do about that. He says he's unhappy, but how is he going to negotiate with that regime in the future? We don't know. So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions that are without answers. And just to sum it up, we had Donald Trump saying in his press conference, well, it's going to be over soon. Just 24 hours ago, we had Pete Hegseth, the so-called Secretary of State for War in the United States, the Defense Secretary, saying we're just getting started. So that leaves the door open to all sorts of questions about exactly what the end of this war looks like and when it's going to happen.
Right, well, let's take a look at how the war's been handled here in Europe. We've got French President Emmanuel Macron, who on Monday pledged to dispatch additional warships to the Eastern Mediterranean to strengthen allies' security in the region. Let's take a listen to Macron, who spoke in Cyprus.
We are not a part of this offensive. Our objective is to protect our nationals, and we're putting ourselves in a position to defend them for the next few weeks and months if necessary.
Macron speaking there before visiting the Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier, which arrived this weekend in the Eastern Mediterranean. Philip, what's all this about then?
Well, Emmanuel Macron sees himself as probably one of the most influential European leaders. Remember, France is a permanent member of the UN Security Council. France is a nuclear power. So he is keen to show that France is supporting other EU nations when they come under threat, which is the case where it is involving Cyprus with this attack against military bases there, British military bases. But there is a special partnership between France and Cyprus. So Emmanuel Macron has gone there to show that France has a series of objectives. First one, to show support for Cyprus. Second one, to defend France's interests. Third one, to act as a go-between between the Iranians on one side and the Americans on the other to try to bring the two sides together to find a way out of the current conflict. He also wants to reopen the Strait of Hormuz once the missile attacks that are raining down on the region right now have come to an end. Remember, 20% of the world's oil and gas supplies go through the Strait of Hormuz. That, for Emmanuel Macron, is very important in a way of keeping prices down here in Europe, which would obviously be unfavourable when it comes to political parties in power and bring down their opinion poll ratings. And the third one is to defend freedom of navigation, not only in the Red Sea, but also in the Strait of Hormuz. So that is what Emmanuel Macron is attempting to outline with this trip there. But there is no way that France is going to get involved in this war and launch attacks against Iran. That is something that Emmanuel Macron has made very clear, and for a series of reasons, because many countries are asking a lot of questions. For example, if we did follow Donald Trump, would we be breaking international law? Would we risk getting involved in a conflict which doesn't have an endgame absolutely carved out for us to see where we're going in all of this? And are we able to protect our interests if we get involved in this war against Iran? So I think those are the questions that have been answered. That's why Emmanuel Macron has made this pretty clear. Yes, we are involved. Yes, we are sending warships to the region, but this is purely for defensive action. We're not taking part in the offensive against Iran.
So is France and the European Union grappling with how to defend their interests in the region?
It's difficult for many of those countries to see eye to eye with what Donald Trump is doing. And it's quite interesting. You have the case of Spain, for example, where Spain has fallen out with the United States because Spain refused to let the US use its bases. There was this very aggressive response from Donald Trump saying, well, in that case, we're going to cut all ties with Spain economically, diplomatically. That's it. We're not having anything else to do with them. Then you have the case of the United Kingdom, where there's been this spat between Donald Trump and the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer over the use of a UK base in the Chagos Islands, which was not given and then given afterwards. Donald Trump then saying with that quote we saw earlier that it's too late, we don't want to bring on friends when we've already won the war. That appears now to have calmed down a little bit since the phone call between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer on Sunday. There are other countries in the Gulf who have been sending in frigates to the area, 4 of them, France, Germany, Greece, and the United Kingdom, which are all sending frigates there to boost the French effort. And Greece, Portugal, and the UK have also let the US use their bases there. But I think there's a feeling, as I was saying in those questions earlier on, that they don't want to get involved in this. And there is pressure from opposition parties within those countries to join forces with the United States in trying to finish off the threat which Iran poses in the Gulf. But many countries say, well, the absolute objective of the United States is still not clear enough, and we don't want to go in and get involved in another Iraqi-type situation that we saw in 2003, where this could lead to the collapse of the country and make the situation even worse afterwards. That's why we are only intending to go down to protect our interests. I think the other thing that many of these countries would like to do, and particularly France, is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. That's why they're sending down the Charles de Gaulle and all these frigates there in a bid to try to get those oil supplies through the Strait of Hormuz once the attacks have died down there. All of this in a bid to keep oil prices stable and to stop a sudden increase, which could be very detrimental to economies, not only in Europe, but right away around the world.
All right, Philip Turle, thank you very much for your analysis.